Welcome to Big Blend Radio, where we celebrate variety and how it adds spice to quality of life. Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Quality of Life show and our Big Daily Blend show, because today we're going to talk about Father's Day. We're going to talk about a wonderful children's book that is out now today. It launches today. It is called The Mood Swing. It is out by an amazing author, B.R. Duray. He is an author, a film director, screenwriter, and he's based, out in Southern California. And he was raised in our old stomping grounds in San Diego. So it's really cool to welcome B on the show. How are you?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Lisa.
I love that you're releasing this on Father's Day. And I love the book, The Mood Swing, because number one, I love it's important to talk about moods. And I kind of think that people shy away from the word mood and mood swings when it comes to youth, and you dive right into it. And I love the magic of the actual swing itself. Like, we all love swings. I don't care what age we are. Do you like to swing even now? I mean,
It's the best. I think it's better as you get older because you just don't do it as much. So you're like, wow, this is nice change up.
yeah. Well, congratulations on the book release.
Thank you.
It does feel so, I love the illustrations, because just the way it rhymes and it doesn't rhyme, it's easy to read. But I love the illustrations because I think it swings you into positivity and resilience and moving forward when something negative can happen. And that's the other part of what I love about the mood swing part, is you can swing up and go, but at some point you're going to swing back, right? And so I love that you've got that all together. You want to give us a little bit of a backstory on the book?
Yeah, thank you so much actually, I just love the way you described it all, because those are all the elements that I think it was almost like a charm bracelet I was piecing together when I was first putting it together. And it for me was, like you said at the start, it was something that was a story for children who do feel moods and feel strong emotions and are more sensitive. It kind of originated actually as I was riding a swing. I was down by a beach. I live here in LA now, and I was down at a beach, and they had like a swing set, and I just kind of one day was feeling nostalgic and just kind of sat on it. And I remember that when I was a kid, I had this imagination where I'd get on the swing, and when I was swinging really high up in the air, I would imagine that I would sort of blast off into the sky. And then as I got older, I kind of remembered that, and then I was sort of thinking, all right, moods. I think the word mood swing just kind of hit me, and I was on the swing, and then it kind of all slowly pieced together, like, okay, an actual swing, the ups and downs of life. And it really was just like this final little element I needed, because I always wanted to tell a story about loss and grief, particularly for kids who lose a parent. I lost my dad when I was 10. So my Father's Days are spent celebrating my dad in a different way. Still very much feel him with me, but there's been a new relationship. And when I was so young, I remembered that, like, learning the tools to kind of cope with it and to deal with it in a healthy way. Storytelling was like really powerful, and really, I think, had maybe some of the most important impact on me. My mom was an incredible single mom who oftentimes, she was my strength and my rock, but these stories that help you to understand that things are good, things are bad, but it's okay, life goes on. Because when you're a kid, I think the scariest thing is you just don't know that the feelings you're feeling are ever going to go away. I mean, at least for me, that's what was the scariest. Was I remember, like, I was really sad and I got really anxious after he died. And like, none of my friends were dealing with that in their lives, like none of their daily lives didn't have that kind of level of severity, of depth. I grew up in Encinitas, which was a really awesome upbringing. But so anyway, like, I think it was just, that was always, it stuck with me, that I knew I wanted to tell a story like that. I rode a swing one day. It kind of all came together. And so the story is about this magical land on top of a hill where there's a swing. And when kids come and ride it, the swing mirrors their emotions. And so this boy comes and rides his swing with both of his parents one day, and he blasts off into outer space, and he gets to meet aliens and swim through stars. And it's the most amazing, like, highest high.
Aliens hangout spot there in the book. I love the aliens. Sorry, that's cool.
Oh, I'm a big alien guy. I worked for 2 years on a UFO show, actually, because I'm a filmmaker most of the time. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Hey, you lived in 29 Palms, so I bet you saw some things over there.
I've seen some really weird things all over. And I'm, yeah. And I believe in the supernatural because I don't believe it's supernatural. I believe it's there. Like, why
Yes.
not? I mean, come on,
Yeah, science fiction's becoming science fact every day. I think we had it right with a lot of our early myths and stories trying to explain things that we couldn't see with our eyes, but now we're getting to a point. And so, and again, the role of story, which is like you take these wonders and you sort of say, okay, how can this help me to live my life a little bit more fully? And so anyway, all that attracted me to storytelling in the beginning. But basically, Peter goes on this big adventure on his high, goes through outer space, and then when he comes back a year later, he's just with his mom. We don't really know what happened to his dad, but when he rides it this time, instead of looking up at the top of the swing and blasting off on his adventure, he looks down as the swing swings down and he falls into a pit of quicksand and he tries to find his way out. And basically, through the help of the magic swing and his mom, he learns how to find the balance of the swing going up and
mm,
down. And so, I think that it's a story for kids, yes, but it's also a story, I think, just for families and for anyone that loses
it's
a
a
parent.
tool. It's a
Yeah, but
great tool, you know?
my banker, went to Chase Bank to like do some stuff when I was first getting the book started. He's like, "Oh, I see you. You're doing a book," and I said, "Yeah, I have it right here." And I started reading it to him. I don't really know him that well, but after I finished reading it, he like looked up at me and he was kind of silent and he had a tear going down his eye and he said, "I lost my dad 6 months ago." And so that's when it told me, okay, everyone feels like a kid again when they lose their parent. And so anyway, yes, it's a children's picture book, but I also like to think it's for anybody going through loss.
Yeah. And I think the quicksand is because it's so overwhelming and you
Mhm.
feel like you can't stop grief. And the feeling of when is this ever going to go away happens to adults. But,
Yeah.
so many times when a loss happens, whether it's a parent or a friend, there's a there is a how do I communicate this issue? It's a real thing. You, as a parent, you want to be strong, you want to be comforting. How do I communicate? And I think a book like this, and I think the color is so important because it sparks imagination. And imagination is our true escape. It is.
Mhm.
And it's a way to find out what you're interested in and all of those magical things that we have. We're born with with magic, I believe, and when grief happens, a loss happens, it is just so overwhelming and it takes time and there is no start and end date. It is well, there's a start date, obviously, but actually, that's also true. There is no real, I just lost a friend and it was unexpected, very young. And there was like this numbness
Yeah.
and he was kind of missing for a while, just because he was out in the middle of the boonies of Africa. My mom and another close friend were all sitting there going, what the hell, and I just knew he was dead. Like everything in me knew it, but I wouldn't let myself go there until we knew the truth, facts first kind of thing. And then when he was there, because I told myself not to go there, it was this numb thing until we actually saw like the obituary thing and his mom, went to go get his remains in Mexico because he's a pilot and a world traveler and all that. And it was it was just like you go from numb. So there's no start date actually in
Right.
grief
That's
until
actually
you
so
allow that
interesting.
to happen. And then I had to go write on the you had to go write things, on those things that when
Yeah.
people die. And it took me some time because I was like, okay, because I'm thinking about his mom more than anything.
Right.
She's elder and here's her adventurous son who did like he's a badass, excuse my language, but he really was. He went to every country in the world, including North Korea.
Wow.
Really did. And to die of malaria at 52
Mm.
is a very young age, but I think him dying of malaria from the Congo is like kind of a badge of honor for him. He would hate to die just normal,
Right.
it had
Yeah.
to be like an adventure. But that's why I was saying the grief that, because we go through those stages, there's anger and all of these mood swings that happen with grief and loss. And grief and loss could be even a family, splitting, a
Yeah.
divorce, so this takes on loss is loss and it,
Yeah.
it can take on even a pet loss,
Yeah.
and so I really appreciate this book because I know you're a filmmaker
Mhm.
and I think films do amazing things. But with a book, I think with a parent or, a mentor or a family figure that's maybe sitting with a child going through this book, And especially for men, because you know what? For guys, they always kind of suck it up. You're not allowed to feel emotions. That's
Mm.
also that old school kind of attitude. So it's a tool to be able to open up the door of communication and not to let it be, let emotions be
Yeah.
present so that they can be worked with, basically. But with a book, the child can sit and have that book later once someone's gone through it with them and can go backwards. I know you can go start rewind and all that. I don't know. Now I'm dating myself by saying rewind, but there's something about a book because it's tangible.
Right.
I don't know. So
No,
I
you're
hope you
so
do
right.
something with movies and everything with this, what you've done. But the tangible book thing is really a real deal to me by going through it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you hit the nail on the head. I mean, actually, the way you just vocalized it is sort of, it's a better way than I ever thought about it. But I did feel like somewhere in my gut, like I was like, this needs to be a book because I just feel like there's not a lot of time that when you're watching a movie with your family, you're talking about it. Hopefully you're not. I'm kind of like a please don't talk during the movie kind of person, but like a book, the point of it, especially when you're a kid, is it's that moment, it's kind of that most vulnerable moment you have when you're with your mom or dad or parent or guardian and you're in bed and you ask questions and you want to see something again, or it can spark a conversation. Like a book really is that spark of a conversation between, I think, parents and kids. And so this story, because it's so, it's deep for a children's story. It's not like, dinosaurs and tacos or some of these other books that are fun, but it's not like that. It's something that's very much talking about one of the most realist, difficult parts of life. And so I was like, I think the book, I'm just glad you brought that up because that's why the medium of children's book felt right for this. But I also, and I guess I didn't tell you this, but I've turned the book into a short film, which is actually premiering in Los Angeles this summer in
Oh,
July.
cool.
So I actually, because yeah, I am a filmmaker by trade. So this is my first book, but like you said, it was like there was a need for a book for this, and that's what I felt too. But of course, since I'm a filmmaker, that's
Yeah.
my easiest. So I actually made a film about the mom coming into her son's room at night. You can tell he's obviously upset and he's grieving, and she opens up this book that grandma and grandpa gave them, and it's a magical book, and it's the mood swing, and then the book actually comes to life in these animations, and so it's actually just a way to bring the book to life with a movie, and then at the end you kind of see that it gives just a little bit of that solace. So that'll be available on YouTube, just the mood swing short film, probably in July. We're doing some film
Cool.
festivals. So yeah, but the book
Cool.
was first, and I think I also wanted to say that the whole idea of how to kind of give medicine in storytelling, I thought of when I was a kid, like what made me want to take vitamins, because like I remember at one point like I had to start like taking vitamin, multivites, like my mom. And so the only one I ever like taking was the gummy bear vitamins. Do you ever have gummy vites or ever see those? They're literally like a gummy bear with like all the multivitamins a kid needs in a day.
I think I'm way older than you.
Okay.
In the schoolyard. Yeah,
Well,
we didn't get those growing up.
yeah, I mean, honestly, probably nowadays it'd be like, no,
Now,
there's so
now you
much
have to be
sugar, but
careful about how you talk about gummies. So we're not talking
oh
about
my
those
God.
ones, y'all. We're
Yes, not
talking
the,
children's vitamins that
gosh, I
are
don't
not,
think it was
do
those.
not mix them up in the medicine cabinet.
No, no, that would be bad. That might
Or
explain a
funny,
lot,
but
but no,
no,
it wasn't
just
that.
kidding.
Yeah. And so, but they tasted like gummy bears. I felt like I was just eating gummy bears. And so it's almost like I just use that metaphor for like with a story like this, I
Mhm.
feel like it's got to be like a gummy bear vitamin where you feel like you're eating a gummy bear, but there's medicine in it. And I
Yeah,
have a
Mary
lot of kids.
Poppins. Yeah, look what
Yes.
Mary Poppins did. A spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down.
Yes, exactly. So Momes, who's my illustrator for this
Oh,
book,
it's awesome.
she did like every page, the cover, back cover, everything was by hand. She did completely
Wow.
like on an iPad on Procreate, and it's extraordinary. And so I really think buying the hardcover and like seeing the pages and
Mm.
seeing the foil is such a cool way to experience the book. But she brought to it a lot of that magic and the charm and the gummy bear part of it, where every page there's something to kind of see and there's a little thing to explore. Because I remember as a kid, like that was the fun of reading books. You're like kind of hoping you're the one that can discover something, or you
Mhm.
just like the pop of it all. So
And
big shout out to her.
yeah, huge. I love the illustrations. The thing, because she makes it almost 3D. the book is almost 3D, the
Yeah.
way she's done the illustrations. So they're very like living and exciting and colorful. Even if you're going through pain, you want color. Color does so much, right? In therapy and moving through things. And like we were talking about seasonal affective disorder, right? In places like if you're up in Seattle in the winter, you need to do color somewhere. You need to put color to step out of that darkness, because people
Totally.
get, sad when it's true. It's why they call it sad. It's you need light. We need, vitamin D and everything. So going into that medicine part, I think too, with the gummies, you're talking about you get to chew on it. And with a hardcover for kids, they're going to share with their friends. I mean, if they can recognize a friend going through something, right, at a young age, and they've gone through something, they have something to share.
Yeah.
And if you don't have something to share, you really don't know at that age what to do, other than
Right.
maybe here, have some of my ice cream, but that's not going to make it go away, for that's temporary. In a book, you can keep going back to it every time something in life happens, even for adults, like you were talking about the banker. For adults, it gives, like, to me as a tool is an important thing, and I think it's very imaginative too. And it sparks that imagination. I know, in life when you're sorting things out, you have to build your core as a human being, your core, like mentally, physically, spiritually, however you all want to believe things, but you have your core, and the only person who gets to have that core is you. And we get to add all these things to it to strengthen, and we are allowed to feel emotion. We're allowed to cry. We're allowed to get mad, So I think your book does all of that for the youth. But again, putting the youth and the parents or the big sister, in the room, you're giving them a way to communicate all that and let it be okay and understand stuff happens that can really hurt and it's going to
Yeah.
happen again.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the comfort is providing comfort through storytelling is kind of, I think, maybe like the number one prerogative in a lot of these moments, because when you're feeling bad, you just sometimes you need a little bit of comfort. But then the wisdom or the medicine, or like I love, Joseph Campbell and Carl Jung and
Mm,
myth, and so the elixir in the hero's journey, which is the elixir is the reason the hero goes and slays the dragon. It's to find the elixir to bring back to his community. And so I really do think stories, especially myths, need to have that thing that you bring back with you after the journey that actually does help and heal or inform or inspire. And so in this story, it's a lot of comfort, but there's also at the end, my elixir in this story was what kind of worked the best for me that I remembered when I was a kid, which was moving from my mind, from my imagination, from my thoughts into my body, into my physical feelings. Remember that whenever I could, if I'd have a really bad imagination about like something happening to my mom, which was I learned very common, but was very prevalent for me after I lost my dad. I had these terrible imaginations of like something happening to my mom all the time. And so it would make me like petrified in anxiety. And I actually think those were like how my imagination got so vivid, which was like so terrible. But like you always get your gifts from your curses too, right? It all comes in the
mm-hmm.
same package. And so um to me, what helped me and grief counselors at the time were like basically feel your feet against the ground, feel the sun against your face, feel your stomach going up and down as you breathe, move yourself out from your thoughts into your body, into your present moment. And it was my first introduction to really meditation, but I didn't know that as a kid. It was just very easy to think, okay, I'll stop thinking about the images in my head and maybe just focus on this. It was hard to do for a while, but it eventually really became something that now is like a core part of my life. So at the end of the mood swing, the elixir that gets him to focus not on the adventure and high at the top of the swing or the terror at the bottom of the swing is he starts to just focus on swinging his legs to and fro, the wind in his face on the swing, the sun shining on him. And it's all the things that you actually, when you're on a swing, feel,
Mm.
not imagine. And that was my metaphor for, I think, is actually a really powerful way that I think we can help ourselves get through some of our hard moments, is to take ourselves out of our brains, out of our minds, and just like put ourselves in our body. And so that's the elixir of the mood swing. And hopefully that is just
I'm
enough.
gonna go on a swing now. I want to go hang out on a swing. I haven't done that for a while, and they're fun,
They are.
They're
They are.
fun, but yeah, because you've made it reality, as well as you can go here, you can go high, you can go low, you can also balance. And
Mhm.
that's the perfect swing experience. You can
Yes.
coast. It's like putting your car on the coast,
Yes, you
It's
need both. Both give life its fullest meaning. And like just like our whole lives, like you said, I mean, we're talking about death here, and you're talking about your friend who lived probably an amazing full life, that was an adventurer and that went around places and wanted the fullest experience of life. Well, that full experience of life is the high highs and low lows. It's the danger, it's the treachery, and it's the excitement, and it's the wonder. And like, everybody's capacity for what they can withstand in this life is different, but it is both. It's the up and the down. It's the happy, it's the sad. And we're kind of living in a westernized storytelling culture that is very Disney inspired, which I love Disney, first of all. I grew up watching a bunch of Disney films. I think what Disney did to like fuse technology and myth and storytelling is awesome. But I also think that there's a lot about myth making and storytelling from older traditions where stories got kind of scary for kids. They got real, they got treacherous, and then they got really happy. And because it's like, that's actually what life is. And stories are meant to prepare you for life.
Mm-hmm.
Then Disney, and there's kind of been this thing in our society where it's like, okay, if it's for kids, it's got to be light and it's got to be happy and it's got to be not too scary. I actually remember with my book, the reason I didn't go through a traditional publisher was people said it's too scary for kids, and I said, not if you just experience death. No, it's not. Like,
Someone
it's
needs to talk to you about it because it's
yes,
so, and some kids don't get the therapist. Some
right.
kids don't get the therapy. Sometimes the library, if we still have them by the time this airs, there is your best friend, to get
Mhm.
through things. But again, it's something you have, it's a hardcover book is something you have on speed dial. You
Yeah.
just go to your bookshelf. Maybe it's under your bed in your book stand. That's something you have there immediately. You don't have to wait for the next week for the therapist. I'm not putting down therapists. I think they're really important. But I'm thinking about kids who sometimes don't get it. And in today's age of phones and this almost disconnect that can happen, where we tend to put on the brave face and swallow our emotions. And then they come out in a very not a happy society way at times, right? To bottle up one's emotions creates bigger problems in the
Yes.
future of that child. So
And
feeling them
sometimes,
is crucial,
yes.
crucial.
I mean, sometimes you don't even know, if you bottle up so many, you don't actually even know what you're feeling anymore by the time you become an adult. And I think that's the case with so many people, is you end up sitting in front of a TV and watching TV to kind of numb out because you're feeling actually so much. It's not even about the stressful day. It's so far down what you're actually feeling because you've just packed on. And so I think it's so essential that when things happen, that they do come out and they do come to the surface so that they don't just get packed under the rest of life that's going to inevitably keep happening. And I do think that with particularly grief, comes in waves. I'm sure maybe you experience it too, Lisa, with your friend or anybody else in your life. But one
Mm.
thing I recognized, because I lost my dad so young, was, for a while I felt like, okay, like, I'm healed, baby. I'm done. Like, I went through the darkness. That sucked. I'm good. High school into college, I was like, great. And then I met, my fiance.
Mm.
And we're getting married this August, and
Oh,
she's amazing.
congratulations.
Thank you. I one day, and for a couple of days, I just was so sad out of nowhere. And we were trying to figure out, like, what the heck, why am I sad? Did something happen at work? Something this, and it finally hit me that I was just like, oh, I'm feeling that my dad doesn't get to know you, doesn't get to know the person
Oh,
who's the love of my life. And like, I realized that, like, grief, you understand the loss of somebody when new moments in your life happens, because there's new moments that you feel the loss of that person. And so it isn't something that just happens once. It's something that kind of comes, yeah, like a wave in and out throughout your life at different times. And I think that's normal and okay and great. But like, if I didn't spend so much time trying to investigate my own feelings, I might have just been in a terrible mood towards my fiance, which she wouldn't have understood or appreciated, for a reason that was actually just like superhuman. Like, yeah, I'm so happy that we found each other, but I'm also like, I'm feeling grief that, like, my dad doesn't ever get to know you, and that sucks. And so that was, I don't know, something I learned that,
yeah, no, I think you're really right. It happens. It's going to come throughout life with
yeah.
things reminding you of certain things. And then sometimes you, yeah, and as we all get older, it just starts happening a lot and it
Mhm.
sucks. And it doesn't, you can hear a song and it can take you back. It can, um, it's to have something to work with is always good, to process it and talk about it. And, it's just, it happens. It
Yeah. And
happens. When you lose someone close, all I can say is it'll, just like you said, it'll happen, but it's a beautiful thing too.
well, and to keep them alive, and I should end that with that story with with a little upswing, even though it was sad,
Yeah.
was like, Michelle, when we sent out our save the dates, she made one for my dad and sent it
Aw.
out for him, and like was a little surprise to me, and we're gonna leave like a chair at the wedding there for him. And so I
Aw.
think there's a way that we can always incorporate and integrate those losses in our life. And so like I do feel him actually with me. So when I say like I was sad that my dad's never gonna know my fiance, like that's the immediate human reaction. But when you sit in it and think of it, like I do believe my dad is actually with me more than he ever
Mhm.
could have been alive. And I think he's with Michelle and with the both of us now more than he ever could have been alive. I think that goes for all of us that lose people. I think they show up in our lives in a way that actually is way more than they ever could have in their physical body. But holding on to that and integrating that, not pushing it away and not trying to forget about it and not trying to like close the door on somebody we lost, like that's the healthy way to live with them. And it's an effort and a process to get there, but I think you can,
And we talk to him. We do.
yeah, we do.
We talk to him all the time. And if it's just, we all do it. So it says something to me that we do communicate with loved ones when they've passed. We do go to, maybe they're where they're laid to rest, and we do these things because the more we feel, the more we loved, right? And that's a beautiful thing. But it is weird how we all have those communications because it is about keeping that love alive. And there is something really beautiful about it. And it's so funny, you can be in the biggest argument with someone and then they pass. And the argument really, for those who are worried about that, it goes away.
Mhm.
It just don't have, focus on the love.
Yes.
I'm not saying
Yes.
bad stuff doesn't happen and arguments don't happen and things like that. Focus on the love because tell you, it just, all that stuff means absolutely nothing
Yeah,
when someone you love has passed.
I agree.
It's a beautiful thing what you've written. And I'm
Thank
excited
you.
about the video coming out that you're going to put it on YouTube. So
Yes.
everyone, the best thing I think is for everyone to go to your website, moodswing-media.org, right? Is that
Yes.
the best place? And are you going to do another book?
I want to. So the hope is that
Ooh.
this one, I have ideas for like, I think 6 more stories with Peter. So the idea being that like they're all these adventures where they're like coming of age adventures about real kind of emotional things that happen in our lives, but they're told in these whimsical ways. So like the first sleepover you have, or the first time you're getting up on stage, public speaking. And so kind of playing still with this really deep, difficult moments we have as a kid, but expressed in these gummy bear vitamins. So it's a series of gummy bear vitamins, but I just need the mood swing. I'm just trying to get more people to know about it and to read it so that hopefully I can just keep doing these. So that's the dream.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for what you have written and created also with the video. And everyone, I've also put a link to the YouTube video trailer of the book. So you can check that out. It's in the episode notes. So go to the website, moodswing-media.org. Happy Father's Day to all fathers around
Yes.
the world, across the country, and father figures and pet daddies.
Yes.
It's a whole new term, but all those who are father figures in the world.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much. It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And a special shout out to all those moms who are having to play 2 roles today as a mom and a dad. You guys
Yeah.
are superhumans.
That's
So,
right. That's what I mean. Father figures. A lot of moms are
yes,
father figures, right?
they are.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for having me. This was so great.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio. Keep up with our shows at bigblendradio.com.